Meet Trevor. The room is quiet except for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. It's after midnight, and Trevor is still in his office, charting, reviewing scans, responding to messages from hours ago. Trevor is an oncologist at one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country. And lately, he's felt like a fraud in a white coat. Today was a hard day. Trevor had to tell 2 different families that there's nothing he can do. And then moments later, have to force a smile and have a hopeful tone in speaking to another patient. By the end of the day, that smile felt dishonest. Trevor has built a career on precision and compassion, both of which feel out of reach. He's working such long hours that he feels exhausted. He's not eating well. His workouts are sporadic, and he's spending way too much time on social media obsessing over what his colleagues and what his friends are doing, like going on vacation, getting grants, winning awards. And he thinks to himself, how can they all look so fulfilled when I feel so empty? Now, Trevor makes good money. He has the respect of his colleagues. He's making a difference in people's lives. But he feels so drained by it all that he can't appreciate it. Trevor is someone who committed to helping others, and he can't seem to take care of himself. Sure, Trevor wants balance, and he also wants confidence. There's so much self-doubt and insecurity that he's facing, and it's forcing him to be terrible at setting boundaries. He also struggles to have any discipline and be consistent in doing the things he knows he needs to do. And Trevor doesn't know where to start. Today, I'm speaking with Leon Thurston Jr., a speaker, coach, and author whose mission is to help people get unstuck and become their greatest solution. Lee empowers leaders to move from self-doubt to self-mastery, replacing excuses with ownership and burnout with belief. And I'm excited to hear how Lee would help someone like Trevor, a man devoted to saving lives, learn how to start saving his own life. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. So Lee, you motivate and inspire the youth. You motivate and inspire athletes and professionals. And I really want to learn, what's the story behind what brought you to do the work that you do now? Because there has to be a story. There has to be a reason that this is why you're so passionate about what you do. So what's that story?
Yeah, that story is, man, it goes all the way back to coming up. I was in the world of Pepsi, the drink, Pepsi and Coke, the battle between Pepsi and Coke. And I was right there in the middle as I was a merchandiser for Pepsi, and, just working in that space there, making some really good money early on. I don't know how much money they're making now, but early on I was making some really good money as a merchandiser. I was able to move up from merchandiser position to a sales rep position. And but at some point in my position, I just really felt like I was helping, someone else build their dream while leaving my dream behind. I was waking up every morning, waking up to 100 phone calls from Giant, Safeway, all the grocery stores, managers, and, putting out their fires instead of, putting out my own, just showing up for them every day. And I got kind of burnt out. We all kind of deal with a little bit of burnout. And, I got so burnt out to a point where I just said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to walk away from this thing and figure it out and figure it out. So luckily, I mean, I'm sure that not everyone has this opportunity, but my sister had a nice big house, and I was able to, move out of my apartment where I was living at the time and move into her house, and you know, um, get myself together. She loaned me a room for a little bit, and I remember the day that I quit my job. Dude, I walked away from my job and told him, 30 days, put my 30 days in, and I ran home to my sis, and I'm like, sis, I finally did it. I walked away from my job. I did it. Yes, yes. And we're celebrating. We're all in the kitchen and we're celebrating. And she's like, okay, what are you gonna do next?
And now what?
Now what?
Yeah, that's the part I have to figure out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And she felt my disposition. It was just like, I don't know. I didn't think that far yet. I just, and I could feel her disposition. And I kind of put my head down and, went to my room. And man, after a while, I kind of got depressed. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I sat in that room because I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. And
Yeah.
I had a nice little 401k. I had some change that I was sitting on, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And maybe 2 months after, locking myself in the bedroom and trying to figure things out, my sister sends me this video of a guy by the name of Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher. Now, at this moment in time, now, he's the world's #1 motivational speaker. But at this point in time, I'd never heard about him, didn't even know what motivational speaking was about. I had no clue that that was like a thing. And I watched one of his videos, and if you know anything about Eric Thomas, he's real passionate. He's real loud. He's real stern in how he motivates people. And I remember maybe 3 minutes into the video, it almost felt like he jumped out of his phone and was sitting in my room talking directly to me. I don't know if you've ever been somewhere, but maybe like for a church or, some level of engagement where it just felt like there was a lot of people in the room, but the person that was speaking, it felt like they were speaking to you.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like for my first experience with Eric Thomas. Everything that he was saying, it felt like he was speaking directly to me. And I remember I broke down in tears, man, tears, crying, just really releasing because I was in a state of depression, and I was in denial about it. I'll just be honest with you because, it's funny because it's almost as if the people who love you the most, they can see things in you that you can't really see for yourself. And I was depressed. I was in that room depressed. So she sends me this video. I watch it. 3 minutes into the video, I'm crying, and I'm like, I'm not watching this. I don't know. Why is this making me cry? I'm a man. Like, let me get myself together. But something was budging me to kind of tell me to go back and look at the whole video and see what
Well,
happened.
do you remember what he said? Was there something that he said that
You know what? I'm a straight shooter. I'm a straightforward guy. And one of the things that he was saying was, if you want it as bad as you want to breathe, and then you will succeed.
Mhm.
Whatever that thing is, whatever it is in life that you're trying to figure out, if you want to figure it out as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll succeed. And when he said it, I just broke down into tears. It felt like he was really saying, get your butt up, go do something with yourself, go
Yeah.
figure it out, right? Just really starting to give me that motivation that I need, kind of picking me up from my rock bottom. And it was just something that was just so encouraging because I never felt it before. Nobody has ever talked to me, in that way, in that manner before,
Sure.
and again, it's pretty hard nosed, but that's something that I needed at that time. I didn't need, the softness. I needed something hard,
Yeah.
because I made a hard decision and I needed something to kind of match that. But long story short, man, I started watching his videos every day. I started watching his videos every single day. And at the point in time, I was really good at music. And I was also producing music and, playing in church and things of that nature. But after a while, I started watching his videos a little bit more than I was producing music. I started watching his videos every single day and I started studying Eric Thomas, studying his craft, studying how to speak, studying how to frame a speaking engagement and things of that nature. And I started following Eric Thomas. And long story short, man, here I am 10 years later, on a podcast with you, giving your following exactly what Eric Thomas gave me, just some
Mm.
encouraging, motivating words. But that's how I got started into, speaking, public speaking and things of that nature. I just kind of followed his trail, man, because he was such a trailblazer in my life.
Yeah.
And I felt the need to start, just giving back to the people who were in my same scenario, people who fell on rock bottom. I remember during those years, I remember even having suicidal thoughts, that made me have a softer spot for other people who may be going through those same challenges and just disbeliefs about themselves, whether or not they can get through it. So I just want you to
Sure.
become a voice for other people, man. But it's been a
Yeah.
long journey, 10 years. 10 years.
Yeah.
10
Well,
years, man.
Lee, what I think also we can gather from having experienced it like you have, you've gone through it. You
Yeah.
were at that rock bottom, and now you're able to look back and reflect, and then be able to relate to people who are there right now,
Yeah.
and also be able to recognize here are the things that will help you to get out of rock bottom, right? So what are the things that when you reflect on it now, you're like, you know what, this is what helped me the most. I know Eric Thomas, those videos, right? Having that voice in your
Yeah.
ears and that those videos helped. And what are some of the other things that you realize, hey, I need to start doing more of this. I need to be acting in this way
Yeah.
to make sure that I never go back to that place again.
Yeah, for me personally, I had to understand that I can't do this on my own strength. I can't. I
Mm,
can't do it on my own strength. I need a team, and he'll tell you this. Every time he'll tell you this. For a whole year straight, I said I'm just going to just study his videos, and I'm not going to take his course. I'm not going to get in his community. And for a year straight, I did okay, but I hit a point where I was stuck. Mr. Unstuck. Here I am, Mr. Unstuck, but I was stuck.
yeah.
And what I realized was, oh, I need help. I can't be the principal, the janitor, and the student. I can't. I can for a little bit, but at some point, I'm going to see some burnout. I'm going to need to build a team. I'm going to need to get in the right environment, get around the right people, places, and things. And I'm telling you, the minute that I entered into his community, my entire life changed. I went from speaking at local high schools to traveling the world to speak. And once I got into his program and I saw people who look like me, who talk like me, who were having those same challenges, same frustrations, and we were all sharing information all at the same time. It was like I needed that environment of people of like minds to come together and like truly help me get out of my place of being stuck. So the first thing I had to realize is that, I can't do this on my own strength. And me, I'm an action taker. I believe that I can do anything. I can do, I'm a high energy type of guy. So,
Yeah.
with that, you gotta kind of balance it out, like you said in the beginning, kind of balance it out and understand that yes, you can be that, but also you're gonna need some people that are gonna be able to help you, be able to actually serve you on a higher level so that you can reach that level as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Yeah.
Lee, what I'm hearing you say is we have to be humble, right?
Yep.
Right, because I'm with you. I've always been a type of person where I can figure this out. I don't need
Yes.
anybody's
Yes.
help. I'm a smart guy. I'm ambitious. I'm driven.
Yeah.
I don't need anything. And I had to learn the same lesson,
Yeah.
which is I can only do so much by myself.
Yes.
I will achieve so much more faster
Uh-huh.
if
Come on.
I'm willing to humble myself and say, I can't do this all on my own.
Yeah, I had to get there, and especially nowadays, it's much tougher because we have something called ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We have something called ChatGPT. We have something called AI. We have something called Google, and those things are great as well. Those things are great as well. But having an actual person there to give you real life situations that can really coach you up, that can really give you a vision, cast a vision, and really give you some guidance. Give someone there to give you the things that you wish you had when you were coming up. And that's something that's needed nowadays, like an actual person. So alongside of, AI and all the things that we're using now, actually having that group of people, that person, that coach, that one-on-one person or that group, that togetherness, that camaraderie is really going to help you get to a new level. And that's what it did for me. And I believe if it worked for me, it can work for anybody else. So anyone else who's on this line right now, who's on this podcast now, dealing with any challenges and you're stuck, you're at a place of being stuck, just maybe outsource, maybe start looking at, one-on-one coaching or someone that can pull you up from where you are, that makes
Yes.
sense.
And Lee, what you brought up ChatGPT. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
when you put in a question to ChatGPT is going to be agreeable.
Whew.
It's going to be right. Oh, you got this. Like it's going to be trying to be your cheerleader, which
Yeah.
at times is helpful. But you said something before. You said the way in which Eric Thomas was speaking, it challenged you. It was hard. It was
Yeah.
harsh. And at times, that's what we need.
Yeah, come
We
on.
need somebody to just shake us.
Yeah.
And AI doesn't do that. AI doesn't offer you that challenge. And also, it doesn't come from a place where you're looking at another person knowing that this person really cares you.
Come on. That's it. You just, oh my God, that's so powerful. You just went through the 4 levels of care. The highest level of care is challenge. Here's the 4 levels. I'll give you this. The bottom one is to have a conversation. That's the first C, to conversate. That's a certain level of care. To conversate, hey, how you doing? What's going on? The second level of care is to celebrate someone,
Mm.
to celebrate them, encourage them. You're doing bad, but listen, man, you're gonna do well the next time. Just encourage them. The third level is to coach them. This is where it gets a little hard now. The
Yeah.
first levels are nice, the nice guy role. It's the chat GPT, it's caring, it's loving, right?
Yeah.
But on the next tier, we get to that third level, coaching. Hey, here, you messed up here. Let's see let's see how we can make some adjustments here. But that final level that you just mentioned, the 4th C is challenge. That's when you truly care. When you can put those 4 C's together, but that challenge, it says that, yo, I actually care about you. I actually have some feeling, some emotion. I feel passionate about the thing that you're going through. So as a result, I'm not going to look away from your situation. Instead, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to challenge you to pull yourself up. I want to challenge you to get to that next level. Man, that's so good.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
I recently had this situation where I did a workshop for a group in Austin, and during the break, when you do these speaking engagements, there's a break, whatever. Somebody may come up to you and start chatting with you, right? And just
Yeah.
they start to tell you about what they're going through.
Yeah.
And someone came up to me and he's like, I'm struggling with this and with this, and there's this new leadership, and they're doing things so differently, and people don't seem to care so much about the customer and the bottom line or all that. And I'm listening to him and I didn't have a lot of time. And in my mind, I go, I could just be agreeable, right? More of that first level, right?
Yeah.
I could coach him a little, or I could challenge him right now.
Yeah. Come on.
So I only had I had like a few minutes. So I say to him, I hear what you're saying. And what are you going to do about it? How are you taking ownership of it? And he looked at me a little like, and he's like, yeah, I think I needed to hear that.
Wow.
Because he was putting it all on everybody else,
Everything
Lee,
else,
right?
yeah.
He's putting it on everybody else. And I can feel it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with the uncomfortable question here. And I'm going to invite him to take ownership of his part in the culture that he thinks is not where it should be.
Come on, that's so good. And you said a perfect word, comfort. He was too comfortable, that comfortable space. Nothing special can be built in those comfortable spaces. And yeah, sometimes you gotta, as a leader, you gotta make people feel a little uncomfortable. It's the reality of it. And I'm a firm believer if you do it in love. If you do it in love and you communicate it effectively, I think it'll push through just like it did with your guy there. It pushed through because you did it in love. You know?
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. Where is it coming from, right? Is it
Mhm.
coming from I'm trying to tell someone what to do, or is it coming from
Yeah.
genuine care
Yeah.
and wanting to help someone to get through this barrier that they're struggling with? So you talked about just a moment ago discomfort, and one thing I saw in one of your posts on Instagram was about the word grow. You had a acronym that it stood for get rid of weakness.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about that. So talk to me about that acronym and what it means to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it means everything. It's the word unstuck. Going from where you are to where you need to be, and the only way that we can do that is truly defining what words really mean. Because everybody throws around the word grow, grow. It's time to, stay motivated, get unstuck. But what does it truly mean? How can you? Because at what point are you gauging how you're growing? The only way that you can gauge how you're growing is if you truly have a definition for what it means. So I wanted to get those student athletes, I was tired of them throwing around the words discipline and focus and determine and dog mentality. Based on what? How are you gauging that? So I gave them a acronym for GROW, get rid of weakness, and that made them focus on the problem. And it's a format that I like to focus on when I'm out here speaking. You focus on the problem first. It's called the pastor format. The P stands for focusing on the problem. What's the problem? Well, last year, we didn't win too many games, so we're weak in what area? So let's find the weakness. Let's describe, let's fully put our eyes on what the weakness of the team is. And, I came up with that acronym, but the A in the pastor format is agitate the problem. So how I agitated the problem was, you think you're strong and you think you want to grow, but does anybody know what grow means? And, I asked them, do you know what grow means? And everyone had their own definition of it. And I firmly defined it for them as getting rid of weakness. That's what it means to grow, and the whole entire room was like, ooh, so now they were all locked in, they were engaged. But, as a speaker, it's just a simple format that I use, state the problem, agitate the problem, give the solutions. The T stands for give a testimony. The O is, make an offer, and then the R is for recap everything that you've gone through. But
Yeah.
that was me just breaking it down to get them to understand we can't just have these buzzwords. We all have to get on the same page as to what it means to have these standards. When you think about Chick-fil-A, any Chick-fil-A that you go to in the world right now, what's the tagline that you hear from Chick-fil-A? They give you your money, or they give you give them your money, and they give you your food, and you say thank you, and they always say my pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah. I haven't been to Chick-fil-A very often, but I have heard of this and how they have imbued that into their culture.
Yeah. So but my point was, it doesn't matter what Chick-fil-A you go to, you're going to hear the same my pleasure, which means that that's a standard for them. So
Yeah.
nothing changes. They honor the standard differently. And the story behind that is, I was at a Chick-fil-A out in Washington, D.C., the new one, and I was ear hustling. I saw the manager. He was interviewing a candidate, and I was kind of ear hustling, walking past and kind of listening a little bit. And he said, "We don't train our employees based on food and beverage. We actually train our employees based on the Hilton Handbook." And I was like, "Wait, the Hilton Handbook?" He said, "Yes, we're not a food and beverage service. We're hospitality, which is why you hear them say, 'It's my pleasure.' I don't want you to just think of us as a food business. I want you to think of us as if we actually care about you." It goes back to that care part, right? We actually care about you. So the reason why, it's the fastest growing fast food business is because they have a certain level of care for people, and because they have a certain standard. And not only do they have that standard, it goes all the way across the board. So when I talk about grow to my student athletes, I say this has to be the standard, but we have to be on the same page all across the board as to what this standard looks like. What does it mean to get rid of weakness? And I just allow them to really peel back the layers on talking about those weaknesses.
Yeah.
It really
Well,
opens up the room.
I think there's a word that you mentioned before, discipline,
Yeah.
and then you shifted to the word standard.
Yeah.
And to me, those have two different meanings, right? Because if I hear discipline, a lot of people think discipline, they think it's like there's a negative thing to it, right? It's like, oh, I got to be disciplined. It's a hard thing.
Yeah.
But you can't have discipline if you haven't yet set the standard.
Come on. That's so good. And here's why. Because discipline means that you're a follower, disciple. It means you're
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have any standards to what? If you don't have any standards set, you won't be able to follow anything, which means that you're going to lack discipline.
Yeah.
So when you think of the word discipline, it's connected to that standard. But if you don't have the discipline, you won't understand how to follow the standard. How to
Right.
follow the routine. Yeah.
Right. And if how often are people just never even taking the time to set a standard?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the issue. There is no standard. It's more of I'm just going about my day and hoping things will improve. I mean, the story of Trevor is very similar to that. I mean, this is someone who's incredibly intelligent, doing really well, yet falling into imposter syndrome and struggling day in and day out to really set his boundaries and be able to advocate for himself.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that imposter syndrome. I'm sure it's something that people are coming to you with, right? They fall into this, whether it's in sports, in the professional world. What is your take on imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been through it. We've all battled through it, and I think of it, in the sense of, like you said, not having that standard. Just setting a standard for yourself, and not only having a standard, but firmly defining what it means. How to get yourself, how to go from where you are to where you want to be. And I was reading up on that story about Trevor, which is I'm a firm believer that he's in a crisis, but I think when we get into it, I'll be able to help them, kind of help him kind of correct this crisis there. But I think Trevor's in a really good space,
Yeah.
uh, as long as he gets the coaching that he needs. So I love to jump into that right there, man.
Yeah, so he's lacking confidence, right? I
Yeah,
think that's a big issue, Lee. Like he's lacking confidence.
yeah.
And when someone comes to you, someone like Trevor, where confidence is a big issue, where do you start?
Yeah. So I think when you think of the word confidence, you got to look at the root word of it. I'm kind of like I'm trying to be a wordsmith these days, but when you look at the root word of confidence, the root word is confide, confide, right? And having confidence means that you can really confide in yourself. It starts with you, right? Being able to confide in yourself. Now, here's one of the reasons why most people lack confidence. And again, I'm saying this in love because it may be a gut punch, right? But those of you who are listening, many of us lack confidence because you're the only person who's ever heard every lie that you've ever told. I want you to think about that. You're the only person who's ever heard every lie that you've ever told. Here's what that means. You remember the last time you told yourself that you were going to wake up early and hit the gym and eat
Yeah.
right, get some good rest, and you didn't do it. And as a result, you lied to yourself. And as a result, you can't confide in yourself, which means you lack confidence, right? Do you remember the last time? I remember the last time I told myself I was going to stop eating. There's this ice cream called Talente ice cream. Talente ice cream, if you haven't tried it, they get a free plug right here. Talente ice cream. I remember I told myself I was going to stop eating it because it's not healthy for my body.
Yeah.
And when the grocery store goes on sale with Talente ice cream and I see it, I actually go down that ice cream aisle and I go buy it. And as a result, I'm lacking confidence in my body. I'm lacking confidence in my health because I can't trust myself. So being able to confide in myself, that's what it means to have confidence. So we have to start there and understanding what these words truly, truly mean, really defining what the word means as you look at confidence. And I think Trevor is lacking that because he's lost track of his routine, right? He can no longer trust himself. And as a result, when he shows up, to do his job, he's not, executing at a high level as he should be.
Yeah. What I took from that, because it's a really interesting frame of you're the only one who's ever heard all the lies that you've told. I think that's powerful. The way I'm thinking about it too is if another person were to lie to you as much as you lie to yourself, would you trust that person?
Come on.
All right, how could you? How could you trust that person? And they tell you, you know what, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and they never do it. Of course, you're not gonna trust them. You're not gonna have confidence. You're not gonna confide in the
Confide.
person
Come on. There we go.
because they keep lying, and
Yeah.
that's a really powerful thing. So, Lee, I think there's two things that you can take from that. How I could bring that into what you can learn is one, of course, what you do tell yourself, follow through on,
Yeah.
but also set healthier expectations of what you say you're going to do. Like, in other words, if you try to tell yourself, I'm going to do all of these great things tomorrow, you're setting yourself up for the discouragement because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
So instead, tell yourself, okay, rather than all these 10 things, here's the one thing that I'm committing to that I can follow through on.
Yeah. Yeah. Start there. Start there with that one thing. Studies show that in the first 20 minutes of your morning, your mind is moving at 10.5 wave cycles per second. And what that means is in the first 20 minutes of your morning, your mind is the most influential. It's the most influential. This is where you set the tone. So in the first 20 minutes of your morning, do something that's going to encourage you, lift you up, whether it's working out, do some push-ups, 10 push-ups, get to your prayers, just work on yourself, focus on yourself. Because here's the thing, if you pick up this phone here, you pick up this phone, I know we're on a podcast, they can't really see me, but if you're hearing me, I'm picking up my phone right here. You pick up that phone in the first 20 minutes of your morning, and you go on social media and you see some things that are just negative, that are tearing you down, they're all in the comments. Forget Jay's podcast. We hate it. We don't like it. They wake up and they're just acting evil all in your comments. And you see that in the first 20 minutes of your morning. What does that do? It sets the tone for your day. It sets the tone, which then pulls you away from your to-do list, from your routine, from your discipline, right? It discourages you. It discourages you through that process. So I think when you say do that one thing, I think doing that one thing in the first 20 minutes of your morning will be so impactful, so impactful.
I agree. And I also think the problem with the phone is, yes, you have those potential negative things, and you're also giving the power over to whatever is going to pop up on your phone to direct your day. Like, in other words, you've just given away your power to whatever attention merchant is trying to pull you right into look at this, look at this, look at this. And then the rest of your day, you're just in this state of reacting to whatever everyone else wants you to pay attention to.
Oh, come on, all day, every day, man. It happens 24/7, just like that. It's so slick. It's so slick. Yeah.
You got to protect yourself. Really, you got to protect yourself. You have to make sure that you are in that driver's seat and deciding on how you're going to start your day. And one thing that happens with Trevor, and you probably see this in many different arenas, Lee, which is he sacrifices himself to serve other people. And I'm a believer in we want to be service oriented. I also see people like Trevor, oftentimes people who are naturally like the givers of the world. They put everybody else before themselves. How do you encourage someone who has that tendency to be able to start to care for themselves more?
Yeah, it's such a challenge, because how do you tell someone to stop caring about other people? It's so hard, and I'm a firm believer that sacrifice leads and then success follows. Right? I stand on that. I live by that. And everything that I do, I have to sacrifice. I have to give up in order for me to go up. All right? And I'm a firm believer in those things. But as you said it, there's a certain level of burnout that can come. And I think that's where Trevor's at. And we've all been there before. I just kind of spoke about it with my journey with Pepsi. I was getting burned out. Waking up every day, putting out fires for other people, while my house was burning. It's a real thing. We all struggle with it. So, but I'm a firm believer that what Trevor needs is a transition from the servant mentality to having a vision. I think there's 6 leadership styles, right? There's 6 leadership styles. In order for him to lead himself out of that, I think he needs to tap into becoming a visionary. Let's go down the list. It's coaching, it's visionary, it's autocratic, it's autonomous, it's the servant mentality, and it's collective leadership. Those are the leadership styles. And right now he's in a servant mentality, which, it's great. It's humble. It's holding yourself accountable. It's, relationship driven. It's leading by example, right? It's people first, right? Empathetic. But most of the times when we're in that servant mentality, oftentimes we get taken advantage of. Let's just be honest.
Well, if we don't know how to stop someone from taking advantage of us, right? Which is like, I know some people, Lee, and you probably have seen people too, that are so service-minded, yet there is a line that you don't cross. They're like, there's so much they will give, but they know when they've given too much or they're being asked to give too much, and they will have a firm stopping point as to, hey, this is where I draw the line here. You know what I mean?
Right. And they almost, it's almost as if they lose track of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know, they lose track of the bigger picture, and that's why I think for Trevor, he just needs some vision. He needs someone to help him. I'll say it this way: when you think about Trevor, Trevor's in a crisis right now.
Yeah.
You know, and what's so good about a crisis is that a crisis isn't personal. I mean, it isn't permanent. It's seasonal, right?
Yeah.
When you think about a crisis, it's not permanent. It just goes by the season. You know, get this. Did you know that in Chinese and the Japanese language, there's no word for crisis?
No, I didn't know
And,
that.
and in fact, the word that comes closest to crisis in Chinese and Japanese is the word opportunity.
Mm.
Opportunity. And I believe that Trevor's in a point where he has a crisis, but he's lost track of how he sees himself, how he views himself in a crisis. Out of a crisis comes creativity. You know, out of a crisis comes new ideas, new inventions, new businesses. And through the crisis that we've all gone through with the pandemic, there were new businesses created. You know, new confidence was created, new faith was created through that crisis. In fact, sometimes a crisis is the only thing that can get us to really change our behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Trevor's at right now. So just having that vision, you know, to that visionary to come in to cast a vision on, okay, how can we get through this? You know, what can we do? What are the next steps to come in? Because he has the heart, he has the motivation, you know, he has everything, but he needs that. I'd say he needs a visionary coach.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
let me give you this example, Lee, because I think this is related. I've given talks before where I would invite people to think about a crisis they had in their life, something where it was so hard that they had to overcome.
Yeah.
Then I would ask the group, who here reflects back on that crisis and feels that it taught them something that they could have never learned if they hadn't gone through it? And I ask it, everybody raises their hand. 100% of the room raises their hand and acknowledges that it was from that crisis that they learned a valuable lesson and they were able to grow from it. Now, here's the thing, though, Lee, like when you're in it, which is what Trevor is right now, he's in it, you don't see it. So I think you're absolutely spot on, which is a visionary approach of having somebody help him to see the bigger, would help him to zoom out of the crisis.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. And have him actually see himself as a victor instead of a victim, meaning
Yeah.
if you got through it before, then you can do it again. Trevor's been through some things in his life. He's just lost track. He lost sight. He lost his vision because he forgot that if I got through it 10 years ago when I went through school, he's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Trevor's
Oncologist. Yeah.
Oh, come on. He's an oncologist. That's years and years of school. That's years and years of crisis coming and adversity facing, and he overcame those things. He just forgot about it. And if we can get Trevor to a point where he can now see himself as that problem solver again, like he once was before, we can get him out of there. We can get him out. We can pull him out of this thing.
Absolutely, we could. Now, I want to create this kind of scenario with you, Lee, because I think it would be great to consider. Well, how would you coach Trevor? Right? Let's say Trevor attends one of your speaking engagements. He hears you. He's inspired by you, Lee, and then in one of those side conversations, like we were saying earlier, where you have someone in the audience come up to you. Let's say Trevor does. He comes up to you and he tells you his story. He tells you what he's going through, his struggles. You listen. And you have an opportunity to ask him a question or two to get him to think about this differently. Lee, what would you ask him? What would you ask him in that moment?
Man, the question that you just asked was just so powerful, man. I can't even get over that. It's a powerful question to help us, you know, truly reflect. You know, truly reflect. And if I had to ask him a question, I'd ask him that same question. You know, I'd ask him that same question and kind of get his take on it. But when you think about it, you know, whatever his goal is, whatever the goal, if I only had 1 minute, 30 seconds with him, you know, I'd ask him this simple question, you know, whatever the goal is, you know, I have him think, you know, what does achieving your goal really require from you that makes you uncomfortable? You know, what's the thing that makes you the most uncomfortable? You know, if you can start there, That's going to put you on rock bottom. And the best thing about rock bottom is it's a firm foundation for you to start building on.
Yeah.
Let's go back to rock bottom. What makes you uncomfortable the most? What's the hard thing in your life that's causing you? Okay, let's go there. The hard thing with one of the things that was hard for Trevor wasn't just his confidence, but it was the simple fact that he spent a lot of time on social media comparing himself.
Yeah.
Right, and he also said something along the lines of he's inconsistent with his gym workouts. Well, here's what you got to know about social media. The average person spends roughly around 2.5 hours on social media a day, per day. 2.5 hours. That's 2 hours, 2.5 hours taken away from his workout time. That's 2.5 hours of him taken away from his quiet time where he can focus and really start casting a vision on where he wants to be. You know, they actually say social media is now more addictive than alcohol and drugs. You know,
I believe that. I
Right?
believe it. And that's one of the reasons why I have rules for myself and for my daughter around social media, just like you would have rules around drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And what's so crazy about an addiction is that it never goes away. It only transitions to something new. So what we want to do with Trevor is we just want to get him to transition to something new. And I think something that's just real and he could actually do immediately. He could delete social media. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
You know, just do 30 days. You're going to come back, of course, right? We're not going to cut off, everything from the world. You're going to come back. But when you come back, I want you to come back with some tools that's going to help you not use social media as a toy and use it as a tool, right? Use it as a tool. Be more intentional with your social media, just like you said with your children. Set timers for your social media, so it doesn't steal your time. Curate your timeline and only follow those things that will inspire you. Because I believe that with Trevor comparing his life to other people's life, he's becoming more crippled in his own life. I just say that all the time, man. Comparisons cripple, and I think he can start there. He can start there.
I agree with you. I think that, invite him right there. Delete the app right now. We have 30 seconds. Delete the app that's creating the biggest disruption in your life. Lee, this was excellent. I'm so glad we made the time to connect. And for anyone listening, to learn more about Lee and the great work he's doing, it was meant to be that you have the University of Unstuck for you to be on the Unstuck podcast with me, right? So anyone listening, it's universityofunstuck.com, as well as I know you're active on Instagram, on social media. Of course, we invite everyone not to overly be using their Instagram, but still follow Lee. It's Lee Jr. Unstuck. That's the handle where people can find you, see your content. Lee, thank you so much again for the time today. This was such a great conversation.
Man, awesome, man. Thank you to your community. Thank you to you, man. You push me, even more in this conversation. I got some notes that I took down as well. So, man, excellent podcast, man. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Stay unstuck, baby.
You gotta love Lee's energy. You felt it, didn't you? I know I felt it when I was having the conversation, when I watched it back. I could have talked to Lee for hours. And I will do my best to synthesize it down. 3 insights and 3 actionable takeaways from our conversation. The first insight, the 4 levels of care. The 4 levels of care are conversate, celebrate, coach, and challenge. That 4th level is about being at times a bit firm if you are coaching someone else, or even looking for someone who can challenge you. And it has to come from love, from deeply caring about the other person. Second insight, discipline versus standards. We think of discipline as you have to will yourself to do something. And the problem very often is that a standard hasn't been set. So before you even get into discipline, have you set your standard? Once you've set your standard, then you can build up more discipline and consistency. Third insight, you're the only person who's ever heard every lie you've ever told. What a powerful statement. When Lee was talking about this, he was referencing how you told yourself you were going to get up early in the morning. You told yourself you were going to work out. You told yourself you weren't going to eat this or that. And you lied to yourself if you didn't fulfill that commitment. And you're the one hearing it. So if you hear yourself lying, or if you are noticing that you're lying to yourself, how could you ever believe yourself? How could you ever have confidence in yourself? And the way I framed it in the conversation is, if someone else lied to you as much as you lie to yourself, would you believe them? So be sure that you aren't lying to yourself and that you set healthier expectations. All right, our actionable takeaways. The first actionable takeaway: be intentional about the first 20 minutes of your day. When you wake up, you're at your most impressionable. Are you jumping to your phone? Are you immediately engaging in an activity that builds you into a distraction zombie? Or are you using that time to take care of your health, to get more focused, to set your agenda for the day? Those first 20 minutes are critical. The second actionable takeaway: if you're sacrificing too much, shift from service to vision. Zoom out and be able to look at what is the greater goal that you're after. What's the vision that you have for yourself, for your family, for the impact you want to have on the world? That's a different way of approaching leadership and how you lead yourself and others when you're doing so from vision rather than only service. And your third actionable takeaway: use social media as a tool, not a toy. Lee talked about how we spend on average 2.5 hours a day on social media. I said this to my wife recently and she goes, it's definitely more than that. The average person is definitely more than that. So at minimum 2.5 hours a day. And what that does is you fall into the pattern of comparison and also feeding your mind with one thing after another, which then leads to your phone becoming more like a toy than a tool. Social media isn't all bad, but leverage it in a way that's meaningful versus as something that you're just playing around with for stimulus. And join us on Friday. On Friday, I'm going to dive into how to be more capable of living intentionally versus in reaction modes. Because what's happening, I see, is that people are seeking out novelty. That's why you reach for your phone. You're seeking out novelty, something to make you feel good. And in doing so, you train your mind to be constantly seeking the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing. That's why it's hard to be consistent. It's hard to be disciplined. It's hard to follow through on things because the people who do are committing to the boring things, the things that aren't as new. It isn't so exciting. So how do you train your mind to be able to be okay with that kind of boredom? To be able to not keep seeking out the next thing? And I'm going to be giving you a 5-step process of being able to work through that initial pull that you feel to reach for the phone, to seek out the novelty. I'm going to give you 5 steps that you can work through that are actionable. You can apply them so that you can be more capable of being consistent, being disciplined, and also just being at peace, being at ease. So don't miss that episode on Friday. And until next time, thank you so much for listening.